Okay. On the board, I have a question for you. This is maybe a word you've not heard of before. What is a humanitarian? Have you ever heard that word before?
No.
Do you recognize part of the word humanitarian?
Yeah.
What do you notice in it?
Human.
Human. Okay. So it's obviously a person, right? Have you ever heard of a person that tries to help fight for human rights? Have you ever heard of Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yeah.
Okay, you're familiar with him. Have you ever heard of Roberto Clemente?
No.
No. Yes.
What do you know about him? It was. You don't remember right now? Okay. So a humanitarian is a person who helps others try to better their lives, but they don't worry about what race they are or what their beliefs are or what their nationality is. Can you put that on the floor, please? Thank you. Okay. They just want everybody to have the same opportunities and be treated the same way. We're going to read a story about Roberto Clemente. And if you are, I can't think of the word, I just drew a blank. If you are familiar, there's the word I was looking for. If you're familiar with baseball, he was a baseball player.
Ah, now I know.
Okay, thank you.
It's where he was.
So, why would he be considered a humanitarian though? What do you think he did besides just play baseball?
Fought for human rights.
Fought for human rights. Any other ideas? Whatever you're messing with, let's not, okay? Thank you. No other ideas? Okay. Well, before we read the story, of course it has to do with baseball. But it also has to do with this part too. They don't use this word in the story, but this is what he is, or sorry, what he was during part of the explanation that they're giving of Roberto Clemente in the story. So those of you, how many of you are familiar with baseball? Or maybe you're familiar with softball, because they're similar. Okay, so about half of you are. Let's get rid of that. And as we are reading through this story, let me find my paper here. Sorry, I thought I set it over there, but
Are we gonna read the story today?
we are. Think about a baseball game. A lot of these words relate to baseball. What's that word?
Stands.
Stands. Like stands, like Mrs. Loafing stands at the front of the room?
No.
What does this have to do with baseball, possibly?
It means like that people who sit and like,
Okay, where the people sit during the game are called the stands, okay? How about, I bet you're familiar with this word. Score. What is the score? What does that mean? Lucas?
Like if you're
hit
So score has to do with the points each team has, right? But in baseball, they're called runs. The score is the runs. I'm gonna see if I can trick you. What is this word? Slammed. Like, slammed the door behind them?
No.
What would slammed have to do with a baseball story? What do you think, Haley? Slammed the ball with the bat, possibly. Okay, what are you thinking?
Where the bat hits the ball.
Okay. What's that word? Pronounced. What? What would that have to do with baseball? What do you think, Connor?
Like you pronounce the scores, you pronounce.
That would be announced, the scores. If you pronounce someone's name, are some names hard to say? Difficult to say? Like if you look at them and you're like, I don't know how this name should be said. Like maybe somebody, it looks like it says Anna, but they say their name is Anna. Okay, or if I'm gonna use your name for example. Your name is Natalia, but what if they call you Natalie? Did they pronounce it correctly?
No.
No. Okay, so when you pronounce someone's name, it's how you say it. How about, I'm gonna write it over here. That word. Fans. Are they talking about the fans that are up on the ceiling or a fan that's blowing, air down here?
No.
What would this have to do with baseball? Raylan? The fans that are cheering them on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. This one. Style. Goes along with our phonics that we've been talking about. The Y says I. So the vowel, consonant, silent E. Alright, but what in the world would style have to do with baseball?
Like,
It's kind of tricky, huh?
yeah.
You want me to come back to you if you think of it? What are you thinking?
Like how they dress to play softball.
Okay, how they dress, maybe.
How they run to bases in style.
Okay, maybe so. We'll have to keep an eye on this one in the story to see how it's being used. Do you know that word?
Legal.
League. Do you know what a league is?
Yeah.
Now we're talking about baseball.
So you have a league. You want to put them.
Okay,
Like-
let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of the NBA?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the NFL?
Yeah.
The MLS? MLB? Those are all different leagues. One's football, one's basketball, one's soccer, one's baseball. It's a group of players playing that sport. Okay. Then, one more word. This one is really tricky how it fits in this story. It's polish. Now, they're not talking about nail polish, are they?
No.
No, that doesn't have anything to do with baseball. So this one is kind of different how it fits in, but what do you think?
Like
Who's our door manager? Could you close the door, whoever it
the
is?
vessel, the
Umpires.
yeah, the umpires, they polish the.
Oh, you're thinking like when they're cleaning off the home plate? Okay, that's a good assumption. That's not how it's used in the story though. So we're gonna be listening for how this one is used in the story as well.
And
Okay.
style.
Yep, so these two are the two that are trickier for the type of meaning that is being used in the story. Because remember, a lot of words can have more than one meaning, can't they? Okay. Okay, so get out your Journeys book.
There's nobody can use the bathroom.
We're gonna spend the next few minutes reading the story,
Then we're gonna switch to.
and then, yep, we're gonna have a short reading and a short writing time today. Okay, so we'll spend the next few minutes reading the story, and then, don't let your hair be a
I was
distraction.
just at the.
We'll move on to writing. All right, so look in the contents section at the beginning of the book. Go back to the contents page. Now, we're still in Unit 1. This is Lesson 5 of Unit 1. Everybody find that? Do you see where it's located? It's at the very bottom of that page, isn't it? But I want you to turn one page. What do you notice about the top of the next page?
Unit 2.
Okay, exactly. So this is our last story in the first unit. So looking back at Lesson 5, the Roberto Clemente story, look beside the words Roberto Clemente. It tells us what the genre of this story is. Do you see that word right beside the purple words Roberto Clemente?
Yeah.
What is that word that it says for the genre?
Biography.
It is a biography. Now, have you learned about biographies before?
Yes.
Yeah.
So a biography, what do you know about this genre? It's a story, we know that, but what's it a story about? Do you see what page Roberto Clemente starts on?
Yeah.
Flip to that quickly, and then do a quick picture walk. Who does it look like this whole entire story is about? Roberto Clemente. All right, so a biography is a story about someone. It's written by someone else. It's not written by that person. Okay, so this story was written by another person, but it's about whom? Roberto Clemente. All right, so let's go back to the beginning of the story. And let's find out who the author is as well as the illustrator. So the author is Jonah Winter. Although Jonah Winter was raised in Texas, as a kid, he rooted for the Pittsburgh Pirates and Roberto Clemente. Growing up, he was my hero, Winter says. Today, Winter lives in Pittsburgh, where he plays the clarinet, writes poetry, and watches baseball. Now, the illustrator is Raul Colon. Like Roberto Clemente, Raul Colon is from Puerto Rico. While Colon is known mainly as an illustrator, his artwork is also familiar to people who ride the New York City subway. An enormous mural he created called Primavera, which means springtime, fills a whole wall of a subway station. All right. Looking at that next page with the essential question down in the bottom right-hand corner, says, what causes someone to be a hero? So that is telling me, that question is telling me, even though it's asking a question, it's telling me that Roberto Clemente must have been considered a what?
Hero.
A hero. What does hero mean to you? Haley, what's a hero to you?
Like person in one of the branches of the military, or like a firefighter, people like that.
Okay, so if you couldn't hear her on the video, she said people like in the branches of military, or a firefighter, or people like that. Connor, what do you think a hero is?
I think a hero is who just stands up for each other.
People who stand up for each other. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and read this Roberto Clemente, Pride of the Pittsburgh Pirates. On an island called Puerto Rico, where baseball players are as plentiful as tropical flowers in a rainforest, there was a boy who had very little, but a fever to play baseball to play and win at baseball. Now, hold on. They started out using some figurative language that maybe we've never used before. They said that baseball players are as plentiful as tropical flowers in a rainforest. But what does that mean? Are there a lot of tropical flowers in a rainforest?
Yeah.
Okay, so then that's telling us there are a lot of baseball players in Puerto Rico. Okay, so he's just one of many. It says he was a boy who had very little, which makes me think maybe his family is poor, but a fever to play and win at baseball. Like a fever, like this kind of fever? Like, ooh, I'm hot, I have a fever, I have a temperature.
No.
What do they mean by that? He had a fever to play and win at baseball.
Like he really, really wanted to play.
Yes, a huge desire to play and win at baseball. All right. So notice, what is he doing in this illustration?
He's watching them in the tree.
Natalia?
He's sitting in a tree watching the baseball players play.
Okay. Do you think they're the same age as him?
No.
Or do you think they might be older than him?
Older.
Okay. All right, let's keep reading. He had no money for a baseball bat, so he made one from a guava tree branch. His first glove he also made from the cloth of a coffee bean sack. His first baseball field was muddy and crowded with palm trees. For batting practice, he used empty soup cans and hit them farther than anyone else. Soup cans turned into softballs. Softballs turned into baseballs. Little League turned into minor league, turned into winter league, professional baseball in Puerto Rico. Do you notice what they did in that whole page, that last paragraph mainly? And look at the picture that they're showing us. What do you notice about the picture?
They're growing.
Yeah, the picture goes along with that paragraph where it says Little League. Which one would be the Little League player in the picture? Point to the Little League player. Okay, Little League turned into minor league. Which one is the minor league player? Turned into winter league, which then is the professional baseball in Puerto Rico. Okay, so do you see how they've shown how he played from the time he was just a little guy to an older kid?
Yeah.
Now, did he have money to be able to go buy a baseball or a baseball bat?
No.
So what did he do? Was he creative in his thinking?
Yeah.
What did he do for a baseball bat?
He
Made it out of a guava tree branch, right? What about, did he actually have a ball that he could use at first?
No.
So what did he hit at first?
A
A soup can, probably an empty one, right? Okay, so he would hit a soup can. Then what was he able to get? A softball. Then what did he finally use? A baseball. Do you see how that is being shown in the picture as well? The little kid with the guava tree branch is hitting the soup can. He's the Little League player. The minor league player is hitting a baseball bat with a softball. And then the professional, he's in the Puerto Rican League, is hitting an actual baseball. All right, let's turn. So we're on page 156. He played so well, he received an invitation to play in the major leagues in America. What an honor. But the young man was sent to a steel mill town called Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where his new team, the Pittsburgh Pirates, was in last place. So were they very good?
No.
Or were they kind of bad?
Kind of bad.
Yeah. Now this was something very strange, being on a losing team. So what does that tell you? What kind of team was he always on?
A winning team.
A winning team. But now he's in America, totally different place. He's in a steel mill town, so there's lots of factories. Do you see the factories
Yeah.
kind of in front of him in that picture?
Yeah.
For the young Puerto Rican, everything was strange. Instead of palm trees, he saw smokestacks. Point to the smokestacks. Okay. Instead of Spanish, he heard English. So did he know English?
No.
No, he only knew Spanish. So it's a weird looking land to him. People talk weird and he doesn't understand them. And instead of being somebody, because he was popular in Puerto Rico, he was nobody. Did anybody know who he was in America? No. Let's look at the next page. His first at bat, he heard the announcer stumble through his Spanish name. Robert, let's see, Toe Clement. It echoed in the near empty stands. Roberto Clemente was his name, and this is pronounced Roberto Clemente. As if to introduce himself, Roberto smacked the very first pitch. Let's turn. but it went right up the infield and into the second baseman's glove. Still, Roberto ran like lightning and beat the throw to first base. So was he fast or slow?
Fast.
Really fast. If you run like lightning, it means you're really fast. The Pittsburgh fans checked their scorecards. Who was this guy, Roberto Clemente? To his new fans in Pittsburgh, Roberto was like a jolt of electricity. He could score from first base on a single. He could hit line drives, bunts, towering home runs, sacrifice flies, whatever was needed. Once he even scored an inside the park grand slam. Playing right field, he had no equal. He was always leaping, diving, crashing, rolling. Once, trying to catch a pop fly, running full speed, he slammed into the right field wall. Do you see him slamming into the wall there?
Yeah.
If he's slamming into it, what's he doing?
Crash. Like,
Hard or soft?
Hard.
Hard. And fell to the ground at last. Slowly, he lifted his glove. The ball was inside. So was he a good player out in the outfield?
Yes.
Very good. So why did, it said the Pittsburgh fans checked their scorecards? Why did they check their scorecards?
Because they haven't seen anybody as good as him.
All right. He beat an infield throw to first base. And had they seen that from their Pittsburgh Pirates
No.
before? No.
Like, no one else on the Pittsburgh could ever hit it. And he was kind of new. So they were like, wait, what?
Who is this guy? All right. So what effect did Clemente have on the fans? What do you think, Connor?
a weird.
Yeah, like
fact.
they didn't know what to think, did they? Do you think they were kind of excited maybe
Yeah.
to see that he was able to do all these things? All right, let's go ahead and look at the next page if you haven't already turned. Are we on 160?
Yep.
Okay.
63.
No, we're on 160. Because he had just slammed into the wall on 159.
Oh yeah.
But it wasn't just how he played. He had, what's that word? Style. Remember that was one of our words we were going to be watching for here? He was cool. He had this move he did with his neck before each at bat, creaking it one way, then the other. Soon, kids who wanted to be just like Roberto were doing it too, twisting their necks this way and that. So his style was like the things that he did that other people tried to copy. What was it that he did?
Things.
He would kind of like creak his neck from one side to the other. And what were little kids starting to do?
Doing that too so they could be.
Yeah, they wanted to be just like him, so they were doing that too. All right. Roberto did it to ease the pain he felt from playing his heart out in every game. If you don't try as hard as you can, he said, you are wasting your life. Roberto tried so hard, he helped the last place Pirates make it all the way to the World Series, where they beat the mighty New York Yankees. Now, the World Series is like the biggest game of the best two teams in Major League Baseball. So that's a big deal. The Pirates were like not good, right? They were down in last place. Now that he's played for them, got the team excited, where are they playing now?
And
in the World Series, the biggest baseball game there is for baseball. After the series, down in the streets of Pittsburgh, Roberto walked alone among his fans who were so busy celebrating they didn't even notice him. That didn't bother Roberto. He was happy to feel lost in the crowd of a party he had helped create. So what happened as a result of Roberto's work with the Pirates? What was the result of that? Connor? Well, his hard work, but what was the result of all of his hard work? What did he help them do?
Come from us to the world's biggest game.
Yeah, and did they win it?
Yeah.
Yes, they did. Okay, 162 now. But there was something that would have made Roberto's joy a little sweeter. As much as fans loved him, the newspaper writers did not. When Roberto was in such pain he couldn't play, they called him lazy. So, was it the fans calling him lazy? No, it was the newspaper writers, the people that write the articles for the newspapers. They mocked, do you know what mocked means?
No.
They made fun of. They mocked his Spanish accent, and when Roberto got angry, the mainly white newsmen called him a Latino hothead. Roberto swore he would be so good he would have to get the respect he deserved. He would become the greatest all-around baseball player there ever was. At home that Christmas, Roberto went back to the same muddy field he'd played on as a boy. In his pocket was a bag full of bottle caps that he emptied into the hands of some kids. They threw him the caps and he hit each one again and again. Do you guys know what bottle caps are?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen like the glass bottles of soda where you have to pop the cap off? It's a metal cap.
Yeah.
That's what bottle caps are. So they're what, probably about that big around? They're not very big, are they? And they're kind of flat.
Yeah.
He would hit those with a baseball bat. Could he see? Did he have good eye-hand coordination to be able to do that? I would think that would be really hard to do. Think back. How were the newspaper writers disrespectful to Roberto?
By color.
What did they do?
They called him lazy.
Okay, they called him lazy when he was too hurt to play. What else would they say about him in their newspaper articles?
They would call him
A Latino
red hot.
hothead, yep. Is that a very nice thing to say
No.
about someone's, like their race or their nationality? No. All right, let's turn the page again, if you haven't already. When he returned to Pittsburgh come spring, baseballs looked huge. So does that mean they're using bigger baseballs now?
Yeah.
No. What was he used to hitting?
Bottle cap.
Little bottle caps. The whole time he was back in Puerto Rico, he would hit little bottle caps. So then when he got back to Pittsburgh, he's hitting a baseball. That's why he says they looked huge. Because he was used to hitting something so little for so long. And he clobbered them as never before. That season, he hit .351, the highest batting average in the National League. And he still did not get the credit he deserved for being so great. It's because I'm black, isn't it? He asked the sneering reporters. It's because I'm Puerto Rican. It's because I am proud. It was starting to seem as if Roberto might never be respected in the big world outside of Pittsburgh and Puerto Rico. And then something happened. Let's see what happened. The year was 1971. The Pirates were in the World Series again. So, the second time that he's helped them get there. Playing against the Baltimore Orioles, who were favored to win. If someone is favored to win, they're expected to be the winners. So were the Pirates the ones that were expected to win? Or was it the Orioles? The Orioles. All around America and Puerto Rico, people sat watching on TV as Roberto put on a one-man show, stealing bases, hitting home runs, playing right field with a fire most fans had never seen before. Finally, it could not be denied. Roberto was the greatest all-around baseball player of his time, maybe of all time. Do you think, we're gonna make a prediction here. Do you think that Roberto's decision to be the best he could be will change the reporters' views of him?
No.
Or do you think they'll still call him the things that they did?
Still.
What do you think? It's just a prediction. What do you think?
Still calling the thing.
You think they'll still do that? Anybody else think they're still gonna do that? You think they will? You think they will too? Anybody think that the reporters, the newspaper writers' view will change of Roberto? You think it's gonna change? Maybe? Okay. Well, let's find out. The very next year, he did something few have ever done. During the last game of the season, Roberto walked to the plate, creaked his neck, dug in his stance, stuck his chin toward the pitcher, and walloped a line drive off the center field wall. His 3,000th hit. So in his short career so far of him being in Pittsburgh, he has had 3,000 hits. That's a lot. The crowd cheered, and they wouldn't stop cheering. For many minutes, the players stopped playing, and Roberto stood on second base, amazed. How far he had come. And yet, when the season was over, the hero returned to the place where his story began, to the land of muddy fields and soup cans and bottle caps, to his homeland of Puerto Rico, where he was worshipped. What does that mean if he was worshipped? Did the people in his homeland love him?
Yes.
Did they idolize him?
Yes.
Was he their hero?
Yes.
Yeah. But did he sit around and polish his trophies? Our other word here, polish. To polish something like a trophy. That means to, clean it, make it shiny. Okay. Did he polish his trophies? No. That rainy New Year's Eve, Roberto sat in the San Juan airport and waited for mechanics to fix the tired old airplane that would take him to Central America. There had been a terrible earthquake, and he wanted to help the victims. Ooh, remember the word humanitarian that we talked about before?
Yeah.
This is where it comes in, okay? He wanted to help the victims. The plane would carry food and supplies that Roberto paid for. Right before midnight, he boarded. The rain was really coming down. One of the propellers buzzed loudly as the plane took off. The engines failed and the plane fell into the ocean. Just like that, it was over. Roberto was gone. How could his story end this way, so suddenly and with such sadness? The story doesn't end here. When someone like Roberto dies, his spirit lives on in the hearts of all he touched. And Roberto's spirit is still growing. It grows in the bats and gloves and arms and legs of all the Latino baseball players who have flooded into the major leagues. His spirit grows in the charities he started for poor people in Puerto Rico. And his spirit is still growing in Pittsburgh, where people who saw him play tell their children and grandchildren of how he used to sparkle, running, diving, firing game-saving throws from deep right field all the way to home plate, smack, right into the catcher's glove. All right, so he was a humanitarian because he helped the poor people in Puerto Rico. And where was he going to go help people?
By an earthquake.
Yeah, there was an earthquake in Central America. Did he make it there to help them? No. But he had created charities. Do you know what charities are? It's an organization that he would put money toward to help a certain group of people that were struggling and needed help that couldn't afford to help themselves. So was he a very giving person?
Yes.
Yeah. When he wasn't playing baseball, where would he always go back to?
Puerto Rico.
He'd always go back to his homeland, right? Puerto Rico. Do you think he helped a lot of people in Puerto Rico when he would be home?
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely did. All right. What we're gonna do is go ahead and close your book. We're gonna switch to writing. We're gonna do a few minutes of writing. Writing is gonna be shorter than it normally is. But go ahead and get out your writing notebook.
Are we gonna write a story today?
What we're gonna do today is, do you remember the seed page that we had completed?
Yeah.
Where it had like the whole watermelon, the slice, and then the seed? Turn back to that page for me. I saved mine. Yep, there we go. Okay, so everybody have theirs opened to that page. Okay, so the last few days of writing, you came up with a lot of story ideas. Do you remember all those different ideas, either on your story web or the emotions that you had listed with different ideas? And you narrowed it down to the one big idea, which was your watermelon idea. Then we narrowed it down a little bit more to our slice. And then, and then our last thing is the seed, like one specific part of that whole thing. Reread what you wrote for your seed. What did you write right there? Oh, shoot. I erased the whole thing. I'll have to fix it. Okay, so now I want you, 2, 4, 6, 7. I want you to share your seed idea with a partner. And we're just gonna go partners, 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 partners. Okay? You're gonna share your idea with your seed partner. So before a writer starts writing, it's really a good idea to rehearse. So that's what we're doing right now. Is just we're gonna tell our our partner about our seed idea here. So mine is gathering seashells. Now I'm still at the beach, and even though I erased it, it said playing at the beach, but more specifically, just the time I was gathering seashells. Okay? Here's how you're gonna do this. Think about stories. They have a beginning, a what else?
Middle.
A middle, and an end. So you're gonna start at the beginning. So, Connor, you're my partner, but I'm gonna say my example to all of you, my rehearsal. Just the seed part, so just gathering shells. I'm not talking about all the other time I spent at the beach. Okay, so I'm just gonna, now, this is kind of a rough draft that you're just talking about, all right? So my rough draft rehearsal here is when I was, I think I was 8. My grandma and I were at the beach, and we were there to gather seashells. We had buckets that we were putting the seashells that we would gather into, and she taught me that I needed to put them in carefully because I was just dropping them in and they were breaking and I was getting frustrated. So Grandma showed me how to carefully set them in there and layer them with a little bit of sand to protect them. So once I had gathered up some seashells and some dried up starfish and gotten the ones that I wanted, then Grandma showed me how I could put them in a little jar to be able to bring home with me. Now, is that a full story? No, but have I given my partner an idea of things that I'm going to write about? Yes. And it also helps you have an idea of what things you can include when you start to write. Are you ready to share your seed part with your partner? Keeping it really specific about just this one part. Are you ready? Okay, so go ahead and you can sit on the floor with your partner around the room if you want to, or you can just slide your chairs together. Either way, it doesn't matter. But go ahead and share your story that you plan to start writing eventually.